Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm so excited for season 2 and the great guests you're going to hear from, their struggles, how they overcame their struggles, their triumphs. Through personal and business life, I think they're tied together, and we're going to share great stories about that. This show isn't just about me. It takes a lot of good people working with me. Among them is my partner, H7 Network, and Clay Hicks. Building relationships, building community is the mission of H7 Network. They want to create a network of champions where everybody wins. Find out more at h7network.com. And we hope to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you through our show. Enjoy the show. We'll talk to you on the other side. Welcome, everyone. This is your host, Steve Ramona, with the podcast Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And as I always say, I bring servants on here, and this is unique to me. It's a story I've been following for a long time, and I think you'll probably recognize it, but it's what's behind the story that I want to hear, that I want you to hear, that this guest is a true servant in all aspects. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to talking
Coach Jim.
Some hoop and life strategies.
Yeah, let's do it. Coach Jim. So let's start with the JMac story and talk about what happened and how it kind of led to that.
Yeah, so Jason, for the audience members that are familiar, his nickname is JMac, and that's kind of where the world knows him by is. But Jason came into our program as a sophomore. I was the varsity coach, tried out for the JVs. And he's on the autism spectrum, and he's also learning disabled. And he was very small in stature, although that's changed. I'll fill you in a little bit later on that. But so he came in about 5'6", 90 pounds. And during tryouts, my JV coach came in and he said, "Coach, we have this kid, Jason McElwain. He's not a very good player. He's on the autism spectrum. He got a lot of challenges, but this kid has a big heart." And you always talk about, some of the ingredients you want in our program. And he's a we over me guy. He's passionate about basketball. I think if we keep him in the program, I said, "Great. What have you got in mind?" He says, "I'm going to offer him the team manager's job and let him press with the team." And he did that. And it was pretty cool because at first it was a little bit of a challenge getting to understand them and the kids and stuff. But the kids actually fell in love with him because you talk about servant leadership. He came to practice every day and, would do anything. And he would sit on the bench for the JV. I'd say sit on the bench during the JV game. He'd get a little emotional, but it would always warm my heart because after the game, in our situation, I think a lot of high schools, the JV game and then the varsity game follows. And so Jason would sit on the bench after one of my players would straighten out his black shirt and white tie, or shirt and black tie, excuse me. And he would sit on the bench. And I knew him a little bit. But after that season, what was really touched me, Steve, was he was so into basketball that most time when a kid gets caught, they don't come back. And if they do come back, they don't get involved in their off-season stuff. Jason was different. He came to everything. And I started picking him up for his house. I mean, I loved him because he just talked basketball all the time. And so he tries out his junior year, and he's a little bigger. He's 5'9", maybe 100 pounds. And but he doesn't make the team, but he serves as our team manager. You talk about the service mindset. So our first meeting his junior year, when I walk into our first team meeting after we had chosen the team, he immediately raises his hand. I said, "Yes, Jason." He says, "Coach, we know you've never won a Section 5 championship." And just to give you a background, that's kind of our big thing in our area. And I had been a fairly successful coach. You want to talk about wins and losses, but we had a stumbling block. We kept losing in our sectional tournament. In fact, I had taken 5 teams to the semifinals, but losing every time. So Jason shares with the team, we're going to adopt this mantra, stay focused, and we're going to help coach win his first championship. Well, we get to the sectional semifinals his junior year, and we lose again at the buzzer to our crosstown rival. We're devastated. But Jason was a major inspiration. He came to everything against Steve, and he was so bound and determined not only to make the team, but his help us win that first Section 5 championship. So his senior year comes out, he's now maybe 110 pounds, but and he's 5'9.5", but he's still very small. And he's not good enough to make the team. But I told him I wanted to give him a gift for his senior year. And the gift was I was going to help him by getting him a uniform for our final home game, which we honor the senior night. And that's what I did. And I gave him a uniform on February 13th of 2006. on February 15th was our final home game. And it was a rumor going around school that he slept in it for 2 straight nights. He was pretty pumped up. And it was so touching that night, because it's always a nice night for, seeing the players embrace their parents before the game. But this was profoundly touching to see him embrace his parents now in uniform instead of his white shirt and black tie. Well, the game begins, and my thoughts was I wanted to get Jason in the game, but I knew that I had to get everybody else in. I wanted to get him in enough so he could have enough time so he could score a basket. I thought if he could score a basket, that's a memory he'll cherish the rest of his life. So I got everybody in, and with just over 4 minutes to go, I pointed him. He nearly ran on the court. He was so pumped up. And then what happened next touched my heart and soul. As he walked on the floor, we had a good student body following. They called themselves a 6-man. And when Jason walked on the floor for the first time, they gave him a standing ovation, and they showed all these placards, these pictures of Jason's face that one of our parents had made and didn't tell Jason or myself. I was so overwhelmed with emotion. I sat down, which I rarely do in games, and tears are rolling down my face. I'm so touched. Well, he gets in his first game. First time he touches the ball, he's got a 3-pointer from the corner. He lets it go. The crowd stands in anticipation. It misses by like 6 feet. And I love the kid people that I know you're not supposed to pray in the public schools, but I'm praying, dear God, please help him get 1 basket. Next possession, he actually has a shorter shot. And this time it hits the backboard, hits the rim, and it falls off. And the crowd groans. I'm thinking, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. Amen. Third possession, this time he gets a 3-pointer. He lets it go. Magic. The place explodes. And I'm thinking to myself, God must be a basketball fan. Not only he scored, he's got a 3-pointer and can't get any better than this, right? Wrong. For the next 3 minutes, Jason's boyhood idol was the late Kobe Bryant. And he actually used to sign his name, Jason JMac Kobe McElwain. And so I'll finish the story, but I got to fast forward real quick. 5 months after that game, Jason's in California for the ESPY Awards. He's up for the greatest sports moment of the year. And one of the other finalists is his idol. Kobe had scored 81 points in an NBA game for the Lakers that year. And he meets his idol and beats him out for the ESPY. Well, how does he do that? Well, after that first basket, it doesn't stop. He makes another 3. Then he makes a basket where his foot is on the line. In fact, I yelled at the official, he's got to give him 3. And then he missed a couple and he made a couple. And the crazy thing, the 2 things I'll never forget, with a minute to go, I'm sitting on the bench. Tears still flowing down my face. I can't believe what I'm witnessing. And I get a tap on my shoulder. I'm shocked. I look behind me. It's JMac's mother. She's bawling her eyes out. And she whispers in my ear, Coach, this is the best gift you could ever give my son. Of course, what would people do? I cried harder. Then this is actually how the game ends. It's like a Hollywood moment. I'm hoping someday it'll be a movie. We had a contract, but unfortunately it kind of blew up, but hopefully someday, because it's such a great story. But in the last 10 seconds, our opponents, Spencerport, and I want to give kudos to their coach and their players. They're really good sports. They score, and one of our players takes it out of bounds. And normally he would throw it to our point guard, but this time he throws it right to Jason. So Jason's dribbling the court, and I'm thinking they're just going to let him in and go make a layup or a short shot, and he's going to end the game that way. Oh no, he pulls up like 2 feet behind the arc, almost an NBA 3. I'm thinking, Jason, don't shoot from there. You're going to ruin this moment. He launches this rainbow, Steve. Swish. I look over, our student body races on the court, our players race on the floor, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living the movie Rudy, but this is really true. And then our players put him up on their shoulder. He's got the game ball over his head. And at this point, I have no idea how many points he has. And our public address announcer comes on and says, the leading scorer for the Trojans tonight, JMac, with 20 points. I'm thinking with my math brain, if he'd played the whole game, he just scored 160 because he scored 20. But I'll share, there's a lot of ways we can go, but I'll share one thing that just touched my heart. Is that year I wrote a book about it called A Coach and a Miracle. And ironically, Steve, that first half of Jason's senior year was the most difficult season I had ever had. We went through a lot of adversity. It divided the team, and it took everything I had to finally get us going back. But what was so cool with all that adversity, how the kids rallied around Jason. I had never asked the 4 players on the floor with Jason to pass him the ball, yet in those last 4 minutes, he could pass them the ball every single time. And that, to me, that's the essence of teamwork, when you can shine the light on someone else.
Yeah. And you said earlier about Jason is he was a servant's heart. Mm-hmm. That part of the reason why you wanted to make sure he got in the games to reward all that servantality that he'd been given to your team those years?
Absolutely. See, I think that's the one thing that you always talk about when you're teaching young people that, you get what you deserve. And sometimes you get more than you deserve, sometimes less. But I think that is, and the more you give, the more the chance you're going to receive in return. And that was, to me, with Jason is I know the other team managers, but they didn't serve like he did. He was always willing to go that extra mile. And this is a way that I could help him. Because one of my presentations, I do a lot of leadership presentations, but one of my presentations is called Dreams Really Do Come True, where I talk about Jason's story and some key elements of what help people make their dreams come true, what I learned from Jason, really. So.
And he was a leader. That's the thing. He's autistic, in the school, in the classroom. He wasn't the best. He was challenged.
Yeah.
But he wasn't challenged when it came to basketball and the players, because it looks like they all looked up to him in a way.
Yeah, they did. I mean, he just, I know we're being redundant, but his servant heart, every day he would come in. I mean, he was like always the first one there. If we could stay after practice, he'd be rebounding for somebody, and sometimes they rebound for him. And, he was just always doing the things. I mean, it wasn't everything, that anything was below him, like in the games, his first thing is he wanted to make sure everybody had water and, had a towel, and, he just did whatever he could to help our team become better. And, the crazy thing is, a great lesson I learned from him, because at that point in my career, I was so striving to try to win this first sectional championship. And the crazy thing is 3 weeks later, we won our first championship, and Jason's now back as our team manager. And yet, Steve, this was so beautiful. When we started to get interviewed a lot, people would always ask him, hey, what was the best thing about your senior season? And he would, everybody's thinking he's going to talk about his game. You know what he would tell them? Oh, winning the Section 5 championship. That was what I say. And of course, they're shocked, but it's like, that was him. That was what he was all about. In fact, one of the things I talk about in my presentation is his favorite thing was winning the Section 5 championship. Well, I was fortunate after that season, we ended up winning 6 of them in total. And yet the greatest thing that ever happened to me in coaching was that night. I mean, to me, that was the essence of what leadership and teamwork is all about, that servant heart.
And no matter what your capabilities or non-capabilities are, he was a leader because he was mentoring. I always hear from Lieutenant Colonel Oak McCulloch, I do a shout out. That's what he says is, you're telling me you're a leader. Who are you mentoring today? For Jason, it was the players, right? Everybody, right?
Yeah. And he's still mentoring today. He's still working with young people and, trying to share insights. And he's a pretty special guy in my heart. So
that's why I love servant heart. Anybody can do it.
There's
no pre-requirement.
Right.
I'm asking you, I don't know if this would be a tough question, but what just came to my head is, if you had 5 Jasons on your team with that mentality, how much would your team improve? And
from the mentality thing, it would be huge, because that's what you talk about as a coach all the time is, the team comes first, that we over me is one of our characteristics. But what's easy to talk about, much more difficult to implement. And so Jason, in fact, he came back and was a volunteer assistant for my program for 9 years. And he always would struggle with any player that didn't put we over me. And he had a hard time understanding that. So to answer your question, I'll say 2 things. One thing is, number one, having his attitude and mindset is what you're looking for to put the right people in the thing. The other thing about putting a team together is, though, you definitely want different people. You need people in different roles and different responsibilities and all that thing. So you don't want clones of everybody, but you do want to clone his attitude and his mindset for sure.
That's what I love, and that's exactly where I was going. I knew you'd read my mind, in a sense. What's interesting too is leaders are infectious. It sounds like Jason. I know we're working on Jay, but there's so much leadership and servant here. He became infectious to not only the players, the student body, because you're talking about the 6, the 6 they call them, and even the parents, right?
Yes, yeah.
How powerful is that?
I used to give the way we used to set up our season is we had weekly themes. And give you an example, like one of our early themes was always about attitude. And every day we would talk about things about attitude. And I would always give them the quote. And in fact, it's the one on my tagline of my signature is, attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching? And, Jason was a great example of that. He was just infectious, like you were just talking about. And, people really responded because they knew where his heart was, and that was a servant. How can I help you first?
And I'm going to assume this, I'm going to put this out there. When Jason got the award, and I saw it, and I've seen the video of it. Me and my wife were just watching it in tears, like
Yeah.
you were. It doesn't. I mean, when you were talking, my hair's standing up. Like, oh, this is great. Big sports guy here, so I get it.
Yeah.
It didn't change after he got the ESPY, did he? It just motivated him to do more, right?
Yeah, he really, in fact, he was out of our program. He graduated from high school. He actually worked at a local grocery store that's actually big in the East Coast called Wegmans. But he would pop in, and then 2 years after being out, he comes into the office one day and he goes, "Coach, I really miss the program. Can I come back and help?" And I said, "Sure." And he was like my right-hand man. We did so much together. And that's one of the major parts I miss about coaching is the relationships I built with players and coaches, and then certainly having Jason around. And I don't get that now that I'm not coaching full time like I was, but his, like I said, he just was so infectious in a positive way. He was just a guy that you wanted to be around because he wanted what's best for the team. And that's something, as we mentioned earlier, it's something you talk about all the time, but there's a lot of guys that the team isn't their first priority. Let's put it that way.
The girlfriend, the new car, all that. Well, I'm going to give you kudos, Coach Jim. You're such a leader to recognize. That's a servant's heart too, to recognize Jason, his effect on the team, and allow him to do more than maybe most coaches because afraid of their program or what might happen. And you took that leap, and now we're talking about this incredible story that's still moving on today. So major kudos, and God bless you for that. It's awesome. What are you doing today? I know you're not coaching, you're retired. What are you doing today?
So I do a lot of speaking, with COVID, that kind of I was doing more virtual than anything else, but now I'm back on the road, which I love doing, and have an opportunity to speak in, I think, 26 states now around the country. In fact, I'm working on an agreement to come out to California in August to speak to a group. So I do a lot of presentations. My focus is, as I'm an inspirational leader, so I do a lot of talks on, inspiration and making your dreams come true. Do a lot of leadership talks and team culture and inclusion. I do some workshops, and I have a book, as I mentioned, A Coach in America. I'm working on a second book. One of my major goals now is to help young and emerging leaders, and I have a podcast I do with two other people. We're tri-generational. So I'm the old guy, I'm in my 60s, and then we have a college professor, a female that's in her 40s, and we have a young guy that's our host, is in his early 20s. And we've interviewed people from all over the world, and it's called the Limitless Leadership Lounge. And the concept is to try to help young and emerging leaders. Because when I was 25, Steve, I became a head coach at a high school about 20 minutes from where I grew up. And I did such a great job. I led the team to 17 consecutive losses. And then they decided they didn't want me back. And that was a very humbling experience, but it was a really good experience because it really motivated me that I got to turn this obstacle into a stepping stone. And secondly, it really woke me up because I was kind of arrogant and thinking I got a lot to learn. And that's when I really became a student of leadership and how to build teams. And I still, even though I don't have a team per se that I coach like I did for 35 years, I still study leadership extensively because to me, it's so fascinating. And if you'd like, I'll share one little quick inspirational story with Jason.
Please.
So this is interesting. So he's working with me for like 3 or 4 years, and he's grown now. So the shocking thing is, as I said, I think he was 5'9.5", 120 pounds his senior year. He's now 6'2" and probably 175 pounds. So he could not bench press 75 pounds his senior year in high school. He bench presses now 250. But he was also a runner in high school, but he was just okay because he was so small in stature. He was pretty physically weak. Well, he got back and he comes in the office one day. He says, "Coach, thanks so much for having me in your program, but I got to do something competitive myself." And I said, "Well, what do you got in mind?" He says, "I'm going to get back into running. I'm going to run the Rochester Marathon." And I says, "Really?" So, we did a lot of work with our players about goals, and I'd always ask Jason about his goals. And so I said, "So what's your goal for the Rochester Marathon?" And he says, "Coach, I want to qualify the Boston Marathon. Now, I don't know how, Steve, if you know, I'm a runner. I've not run marathons, but I know enough about running. And I said, doesn't Boston have a qualifying time for your age? He goes, yeah, it's 3 hours and 5 minutes. And just for your listeners, if you don't know anything about marathons, believe me, that is a very fast marathon. And I almost fell off my chair. I said, Jason, you realize how fast that is? He goes, Coach, I'm working with Coach Shoemaker. He was our cross country coach. And he's got me training. So he runs the Rochester Marathon, 3 hours, 1 minute and 40 seconds. He qualifies for Boston.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then he ends up running Boston a couple of years later. And I said, what's your goal for that? He says, I'm going to break 3 hours. I said, Jason, Boston's a much more difficult marathon. It's got Heartbreak Hill. He says, Coach, I've upgraded my training. I'm going to do it. First Boston Marathon, 2 hours, 58 minutes and 46 seconds. So he's just a guy that he just never stops. And, I think we can all learn from this is, as you move forward, you got to keep going after it and keep getting a little bit better each day and finding different ways that you can contribute. And he certainly has done that.
Thank you for sharing that story, because my first thought is this is a guy if he didn't make 3 hours, hey, he's he's got, I don't want to say excuses, but yeah, okay. No, every time he makes a goal, he says, Coach, I'm going to find a way. And he goes out and gets the support, which a good leader does. Inspirational.
Absolutely.
Your coaching experience, I probably know the answer to this, probably has helped you do this today, because you've been an inspirational leader for all these years, right?
Absolutely. So, the thing is, I speak in the education sector a lot, but I also speak to a lot of businesses. I spoke at a lot of conferences, and, leadership and teamwork. There's certainly little differences, but the bottom line is there's still things like, I talk about 7 keys to be an effective leader. And like one of them, I always ask my audience, how important is building trust to have a great team culture? 100%, everybody. So then I challenge people. I go, well, do you have an intentional plan of how you're going to build trust? Because that was one of our things. As I mentioned, my first varsity job, it was a disaster. Fortunately, I took over 3 others they had all been losing. We were fortunate to turn them around. And those were what I did. I put these keys together and I really followed them, and I kept growing and getting a little bit better, and it led to a lot of success. So I really share with people, have a plan of how you're going to build trust. And we had a 3-point plan that we did and we implemented, and it really helped us build that culture.
The audience is probably thinking, how can I get a hold of Jim to speak at my school or my business? How can they reach out to you?
Sure. So the easiest way is my website, which is coachjimjohnson.com. That way I wouldn't forget it. There's a lot of free stuff on there. I have a free monthly newsletter. I have a weekly blog that's also free. I also have a YouTube channel, not as big as my man Steve's, but we have one actually for our podcast, but I have one on my own where I do a lot of like life tips and that kind of thing. And then of course our podcast as well. So, but all the information, I have a lady that helps me. Her name is Kate, and she does a great job. And so if we can support anybody, love to do that, because as I always say, when the leader gets better, everybody wins.
Amen. Oh, that's so true. And I'm so inspired. Like I said, I've watched the YouTube and story of Jason. I call him JMac because I hear on when the guy's announcing it.
Yeah.
But the deeper I get into this story, the more I want to help you. So I'm going to do this for you. Anybody that reaches out to Jim and mentions this podcast or my name, either or, Jim will reach out to me. I'm going to send you all a gift. I'll get your physical mailing address. I'm going to send you a gift. It'll be a surprise, but I really want you to reach out because I'm inspired right now. It's California time, noon. I'm going to have lunch and I'm going to find some people I'm going to inspire, because this is what I think the world needs, Jim, is inspiration and hope. And you and JMac did.
Yeah, I definitely think, and the 2 words that I always talk about with people is, keeping hope alive. Although I don't believe hope is a strategy, but I believe you have to have hope to be successful. And number 2 is I jumped in it, because we've had some real tough times. I talked about, we had a divided team, ironically, during Jason's. And a lot of times, unfortunately with politics, with demand, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not real strong one way or the other. But you know what I do know? I want people that have 2 characteristics when we talk about leadership. And number 1 is they're a person of character, not a character, as someone that I can trust. And number 2, that they're competent. And that's what I really look for leaders, not whether it's right side. So the other word that I've really been pushing with people is no matter whether we agree or disagree, let's respect all people, because you can't get started in doing anything together or being successful if there's not respect for each other.
Goes back to the Bible where Jesus says, love one another, love thy neighbor, love God. And you just
Awesome.
nailed
Yeah.
it. God bless you.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. I'm going to have you back. We'll work that
Thanks.
out. There's a lot more to cover. Thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for going deep into it, because I know people like me are getting motivated right now, and I'm probably going to listen to this over and over again. One favor, can you leave one more great, you left so many golden nuggets. What's another one you can leave for my audience to help them in their life, in their journey?
Uh, I think it's really each day. Uh, I stole this from John Wooden's creed, but it is that when we give first with the concept of giving with the idea that you're not expecting anything in return. And I think when you can do that, as John Wooden said, you cannot live a perfect day unless you give to someone without expecting anything in return. And that's the message I think we can all do, is that, you know, if we're being givers. And I'll give one little tip I've started doing, Steve. I learned it actually from a guy that we interviewed. He's a communications expert that I think is really cool. Is he talked about, you know, videos are so big. Obviously, you have a really big YouTube channel. But you know what he shared? And I've been doing this for the last 4 months, and it's been really powerful. And it just makes me feel good because I'm doing the right thing. Is I send videos out each day. I just do it on my iPhone. It's nothing sophisticated, but it could be a thank you video. It could be a just check in, how you doing? It could be a birthday video, you know, and it could be other things. But, you know, because he said something that is so true. Video is really big, but when's the last time you got a personalized video? And I said, geez, he's right. I don't, I can barely ever get one. So, but so that's my little final tip to leave you, is let's go out and try to live that perfect day by giving to others first without expecting anything in return.